for FIOL in the UK. I'm also one of 100 most influential people in the drinks industry as per Drinks International magazine. And I'm the co-founder of a woman-led business and foundation called the Attica Women Project, supporting women and non-binary people to educate on the global drinks industry. But before I ended up in the world of wine and spirits, I actually spent many years working behind cocktail bars and bars between London, Sweden, and back to London, actually. So mainly my experiences in luxury hospitality. So today I'm very excited to share with you a beautiful brand, an amazing Prosecco called FIOL. But before we fully jump into all things FIOL, just a little bit of our agenda. We'll talk about the region, the grapes, of course, the brand, the production, a little bit about FIOL and what we mean, and our cocktail competition called FIOL Master. So the region itself is pretty large, actually. The Prosecco region spans all over the northern part of Italy here, as you can see. And what we're going to be focused most on today is actually Treviso, which is the brand home of FIOL. When it comes to the grape that we use within Prosecco, we're actually focused 100% on the Galera grape. So this must be 85% of the wine. There can be other grapes that are used inside the Prosecco, as you'll see here, but my Italian is not very good, so I won't butcher them. And if you are making rosé Prosecco, you should look at a combination of both the Galera grape and Pinot Nero grape as well. It's also important to note that the sweetness levels of Prosecco, so if we're talking about brut, we're looking at 0 to 12 grams of residual sugar per liter. The extra dry, we're looking at 12 to 17 grams of residual sugar per liter, and dry, 17 to 32 grams of residual sugar per liter. So that means the amount of sugar that's added in the production process. Are we stuck? There we go. So if we're focused completely on the Galera grape, this is the heart of FIOL Prosecco and the heart of many Proseccos. The reason for that is really about the different flavor profiles that you're looking at when it comes to the Galera grape. So, you know, we're really looking at that sort of green, apple, that pear, blossom, honey, and the melon flavors for the Galera grape. It is a late ripening grape. It's straw in color. It has very high acidity and light body. I actually had the pleasure of tasting the grape mousse, like the very first press of the grape juice the other day when I was in Treviso about 48 hours ago. And it's this crazy sweet juice that you just somehow can't really wrap your brain around the fact that it is eventually going to become this very delicious, balanced wine in the end. So it was incredibly interesting to taste that. And it's a historic grape variety known for its freshness and liveliness and its natural acidity. That is in sort of the back of the grape juice as well. Delivers a sort of savory and versatile taste, very much suitable for any occasion. The Galera grape makes Prosecco so drinkable and delicious. So moving on into the world of FIOL. So the world of FIOL is where elegance meets energy. It is born in Treviso, and FIOL redefines Prosecco with effortless elegance, bold, playful energy, and it's definitely sort of versatile and shines both in celebrations, moments with friends, and is definitely the perfect balance of sophistication and fun in every sip. I might be biased, but I couldn't agree more. So FIOL is a mindset and a spirit in every sip. The word FIOL actually means sort of sun or chap in Venetian dialect, which is where these three men and our founders are from. But it also kind of means this sort of standout, bold friendship and sort of living life to the fullest. So a lot of the times we say be FIOL, and we really mean, you know, be vibrant, be bold, be creative, live the life with your friends and share moments with your friends. So FIOL captures this essence of blending sort of Italian craftsmanship with the elegance and playful energy in every sip. And our founders are Giovanni Chiani Bassetti, Pietro Chiani Bassetti, and Gianluca Passi. And these are three friends who are very proud sons of the Veneto region and of Treviso. Actually, their family history goes back almost 1,000 years in the region. And they grew up in the fields and the vineyards around Treviso until sort of life took them separate ways, which was in London and New York and Hong Kong. So about over 10 years ago now, in 2011, the vision of FIOL definitely brought them all back together to express their character and passion for the sparkling wine that's so deeply rooted in their history and their families, to represent the Italian and Venetian love for life. One of the most important things we like to discuss actually about FIOL is the fact that we are not a single vineyard Prosecco, but we actually work with a combination of growers and a cooperative of growers that represent over 2,000 producers within the region and about 6,300 hectares of vineyards in Treviso, which is the heart of Prosecco DOC region. And we operate, within sort of this entire group of farmers to really create the best Prosecco we think in the region, really focus on the fact that we're able to work with an ecosystem versus a single vineyard. So by collaborating with the Cantine, it allows us to access the very best the region has to offer. Our winemaker, Marzio Pol, really focuses quite deeply on how these different growers and, these different farmers grow their grapes and is very, very selective on how he looks at, the taste from the very first sip of the grape juice. So we're able to really select quality over this process, because actually sometimes working with a single vineyard means you might be sort of subjected to things like, climate impact. So allowing us to work with a group of growers from across the region really helps us focus on finding the best quality. And of course, without Marzio Pol, we couldn't actually do it. So it's very much under his watchful eye, and he's an industry renowned enologist who ensures that every bottle meets the highest standard. The production method is the Charmat method, which is how all sparkling wine outside of Champagne is made. But we really focus on, again, that selection of the wine from the very first pressing of the grapes. So at first, we handpick the grapes, then the stalks and the grape stalks are removed after crushing and pressing the skin to remove the juice from the grape. Here is when a tasting happens of all the different grape juices to make sure that everything is balanced in the right way. And then the first alcoholic fermentation happens. This fermentation is probably the most important fermentation process for creating FIOL. And this really comes down to the expertise of Marzio. It's because you have to understand how the wine is going to develop and change after the first fermentation into the second, and then of course after the second fermentation and bottling and things like this. So after the first fermentation, there's a bit of a resting period for the wine to take a minute to sort of blend together, and then this is actually when each individual farmer has created their first fermentation, and this is when we create the very first blend of FIOL. So we taste all of these wines separately, blend them together ahead for the second fermentation, and then we refrigerate the wine after that time, let it relax, and then we go through isobaric isobaric filtration and centrifuge to remove any sort of impurities in the wine, and then bottle under pressure, cork, and label the bottle. So we definitely control this fermentation process. Our yeast, of course, transforms grape sugars into these delicate bubbles. One of the things that's really important for us with FIOL is this persistent perlage that you would get in the wine. And I'll show you in a minute once we go through a little bit more on the next slide. But basically, we make sure that the yeast is chosen to highlight the sort of consistent aromatic fermentation that's going to happen within the wine. And then we really want to make sure that that yeast is going to highlight that fresh, fruity and floral character to enhance the natural elegance of the Glera grape or Pinot Noir grape if we were talking about rosé. So, we really make sure that the yeast works under optimal pressure conditions in the stainless steel tank to create that fine perlage. Like, we really are proud of the small bubbles that you will find in FIOL. And we think that it sort of creates this unmistakable, smooth and refreshing taste when it comes to the wine. And it's about a 40-day fermentation that happens with FIOL extra dry. The other day when I was in Treviso and speaking to Marcel Paul, our winologist, our oenologist, pardon me, he was explaining that if you wanted to do this whole process, just one after one after one after one, it could just take 2 months to create a bottle of sparkling wine. But actually, for us, it takes just over 6 months to create a bottle of FIOL because we really like to take the steps in understanding, and taking time to let the wine rest in between periods to make sure, excuse me, that the flavors are developing in the correct way.
A question: what's the alcohol percentage that's achieved after the first fermentation?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think from the first fermentation, it was around 8%, 6,
Okay,
8%. I can't remember
yeah,
entirely,
no
but thank you
worries,
for asking that question.
no worries. I
I
just
can,
wondered. That's
yeah,
all.
I can confirm. I can send a follow-up email for you. But
So,
yeah, um, basically, as I said, it's 100% Galera grape with FIOL Prosecco. We undergo 40 days of fermentation to really highlight those characteristics of the Galera grape. Fermentation is where flavor is created. I'm sure we all understand that part. But I think what is so exciting for me is that is that persistent perlage that comes from FIOL as a wine. So I will pour myself a little glass. I wish you were all joining me. But basically, one of the things I like to always highlight is just the view of these bubbles. I mean, you can see that, of course, this was just poured. It's probably a little bit warmer than I want it to be, but there's this persistent perlage that happens at the bottom of the glass that really sort of creates, this view of the beautiful bubbles that make up FIOL. And when you taste the wine, you will notice the like very subtlety of the bubbles itself. They're not like big and chunky like some other sparkling wines you might have tasted before. But there's this really fine characteristic and quite beautifulness and freshness of the wine itself. Um, for me specifically, like my background is in spirits. So it was quite interesting to work with a wine for the first time. And so I was thinking and approaching it a lot like a bartender when it came to like the distillation method, which was obviously very different because we're not distilling anything. We're talking specifically here about understanding how important the fermentation process is, and how you can really collect flavor in this way. And there's nothing to hide behind, right? So it's so interesting to have tasted the wine through the production method the other day, from the grape juice to first fermentation to second fermentation, and then a glass of FIOL. And you can really see those flavors develop, especially from the first fermentation where the wine is like quite acidic to then the second fermentation where it's a lot more like in, I would say, harmony with each other. And then finally the end product where all those flavors really do come together. So we're looking at 11% ABV, an extra dry, so 12 grams of sugar per liter, pardon me, 15 grams of sugar per liter. Oh my goodness. And this really fine, light, persistent bubbles with like this fruity floral aroma, and sort of like fresh sweet notes and Mediterranean spices and lemons. So yeah, it's a really interesting wine in my opinion. And it definitely covers that sort of occasion of like really great with the aperitivo, some like light bites at the beginning, also really nice and different styles of cocktails as well. If you were looking at like a Bellini or something like this, like something really fresh. We like to also talk about the fact that we don't just think it's good, but actually a couple of a couple of different organizations have agreed with us. So collecting some medals along the way is really nice to know that we've made a great wine that people are enjoying. And actually, one of the coolest things for me that actually caught my eye the most about working with FIOL is actually the label of FIOL. So it was noted as the coolest wine label as per Forbes in Forbes magazine in 2014. And one of the coolest things about it is actually it's an interpretation of looking at the vine poles as you would be sort of looking down the vineyard. So the project stems from an international design contest organized to sort of give space to creative youth. And the label is the work of a young Italian designer, Audric Dandres. So I think it's really cool that we were able to work with someone within the region to really highlight creativity. And actually, for us, it's just such a beautiful way to kind of bring that sort of modern element into very, traditional but modern wine. Some things that we like to talk about in terms of FIOL is definitely our sort of pillars here. So if we're talking about Italian innovation, we're looking at sort of rooted in the fact that we are rooted in Veneto, and FIOL is a blend of both authenticity and modern innovation, offering a Prosecco that breaks sort of conventions while staying true to its heritage. So, you know, again, there's this beautiful balance in the wine that we really think does nod back to the traditions of the Galera grape, but this freshness and brightness that and the fine bubbles is something that we're super proud of, which is why we talk a lot about our effortless elegance. So our fine bubbles and balanced tastes deliver a sophisticated yet playful experience, perhaps, in both everyday moments and in high-level mixology. Which brings me to the point of bold creativity. So FIOL is a brand that, of course, is a wine and is a Prosecco, but we're also really rooted deeply in the world of cocktails and mixology. So we have a lot of creativity here, and with a strong mixology identity, we sort of dare to be different and turning every moment into sort of a celebration of flavor and flair. So thinking about our cocktail competition, FIOL Master, which I'll discuss in a little bit, but it definitely gives us an opportunity to think about FIOL isn't just for the glass of wine experience, but it also could be for the cocktail and mixology experience. Which brings us to the whole idea of vibrant connection. So FIOL has been inspired by friendship and three sons from Veneto and their experience through life and bringing them together. So we really think that, FIOL is about sharing and bringing people together in those sort of everyday moments, but also embodying the spirit of Italian hospitality and that sort of cosmopolitan vibrancy when it comes to enjoying a glass of FIOL or perhaps a FIOL cocktail. So, FIOL Master, I've mentioned it a couple of times. It's a cocktail competition we started a couple years ago, and it's a sparkling wine competition that sort of tests the creativity of exceptional bartenders around the world, challenging them to think differently and using sparkling wine as the main ingredient for their cocktails. So, the FIOL Master is really focused on building a new cocktail legacy. And this year was our second year of doing it, and we ended up in Treviso actually just yesterday, finishing the trip with the 6 FIOL Masters. So 4 from Canada, 1 from the UK, and 1 from Spain. Next year, we will, of course, do the competition again, but perhaps expand a little bit further in Europe. We're still deciding, but it's about really sparking the creativity of bartenders from around the UK who really want to push their own interest in building sparkling wine cocktails and that sense of creativity. So, the final experience, if you win the UK final, you get to come to Treviso, experience the home and brand home of FIOL. You get to do this experience where you're really embedded in the Italian culture and learning about the aperitivo, going to some amazing cocktail bars and restaurants within the region to really understand how vibrant the Italian culture is. And as a Canadian myself, I do think that there's this global sort of interest in Italian culture at the moment, and Italian drinks culture that's definitely traveled the world. And I'm lucky to have seen that. So it's really cool to go to the roots of these places to see where the tradition comes from and how you can interpret it in your own way. So definitely, if you are a bartender, please do keep an eye on next year's FIOL Master cocktail competition, and that information will be communicated with you in due course. But yeah, as someone who comes from this world, it's something I'm super, super proud of. And we have such great feedback from the bartenders competing in it and not even winning, but just competing in it to be really challenged by that creativity of thinking about wine as the base ingredient of a drink, which is pretty unique in my experience. So in capturing the last little bit here and being mindful of everyone's time, FIOL brings together people, it builds relationship, and definitely is about creating moments to be shared. And for us, FIOL is not just, a companion for celebration, but it definitely creates the celebration, especially if you're with one of our founders. They seem to totally embody the brand and bring it to life. It sets the tone, it definitely lifts the mood. Effervescence and a glass of bubbles always seems to bring a lot of joy to people and brings people together. And sort of each bottle opens the door to connection, a bit of spontaneity, turning those sort of ordinary occasions into a vibrant moment, right? With every little bit of sparkle, perhaps a bit of charisma and character, and maybe someone from the brand. FIOL is definitely the catalyst that transformed that sort of simple toast into a spirited moment of joy. So I really thank you for taking the time to watch this and pay attention and learn a little bit more about the world of FIOL. And I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. And it's really great to learn more behind the label of a brand that we clearly sell a lot of across our
Yeah,
hotels and bars. So thank you.
no worries. Thank you.
Just stop the recording there. Thank you so much. That was great.